Hey surgeons, you ready for Module 1? Anatomy of a surgeon. Let's dive in. So you are a surgeon. What are you? You are a human being. You are a social primate with an animal body, an emotional brain, which is your decision maker. Every single thing you do, don't do, or react to is to either feel something or to avoid a feeling state. A primitive brain that runs on the motivational triad to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. We all have this primordial brain that wants us to basically Netflix and chill, to not do anything uncomfortable, to always stay in the familiar, and to eat cookies on the couch and never leave our cave or go out into the scary world, okay? And you have an executive brain, your prefrontal cortex, which is your most evolved brain, and it allows you to have free will, determination, to set goals for yourself, and to honor your commitment to them. So if you tell yourself, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym after my OR day, your primitive brain might say like, I wanna conserve energy, I wanna go home and just eat cookies on the couch. Your executive brain, if you learn how to leverage your executive brain, you're gonna say, you know what? I'm actually going to honor my commitment to myself and I'm going anyway. And so if we can use our executive brain, we can actually make all of our dreams come true. And part of this whole set of modules, part of all of these classrooms, part of this entire program is to teach you how to use your prefrontal cortex, to use your executive brain to create the exact kind of life that you want to live. A life where you have a positive impact. A life where you can look back and say, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself. Not a life where you're just like, yeah, that was my life. Like I operated on some people, took care of some patients. I want you all to look back at your life and just be like, I'm so proud of me. And the way to do that is to leverage your executive brain. Okay, so we will definitely dive deeper into that in this training here and in future trainings. And so you have an animal body, and your animal body is very similar to chimpanzees. We are very similar creatures to chimpanzees. We share 95% of our genes with them. We have the same common ancestor, and we have complex social relationships where we depend almost on like gossip. Gossip is kind of the glue that keeps chimps and humans together, but the difference between chimps and humans is that chimpanzees can't really stay cohesive. Their social structures fall apart after about 50 chimpanzees. So troops of chimpanzees are like 25 to 80, but once you get beyond that number, their social structure just completely collapses and they have to fractal into different troops. But with humans, we can gather up to about 150. So if you have a company, it'll work up to about 150 people will work using gossip alone, where you're just like, oh yeah, Mary, super reliable. Jeff, like, don't trust that guy, he's a backstabber. But once you get beyond 150 humans in a company, it falls apart and you have to fractal into like human resources and having like an executive board and all of these things. The other interesting thing that keeps humans and allows us to kind of gather in very large numbers is our collective imagination, where we share and believe in the same collective stories. So whereas you couldn't see 50,000 chimpanzees gathering together, you'd never see that, it would never happen. You can see hundreds of thousands of Catholics gather together to see the Pope. They can come from all over the world. And even though one Catholic from one part of the world and another Catholic from another part of the world have never met, they don't have to talk to each other to know that they believe the same exact beliefs. And so that's the thing that keeps humans, is our imaginary stories, the stories in our mind. Our whole lives run around stories, revolve around stories. And that's why it's so important to understand that very specific piece of human behavior. Another thing that humans can do that is going to be so useful for you, and I use this all the time. I will actually teach you, there's something called a metaphor tool later on in later modules, but we think in metaphors. Humans can say, how is this like that? So at one point in time, a human was like looking at a log floating on water and was like, oh, if the log can float on water, then I can float on water. All I have to do is put a bunch of logs together, make a boat or make a raft, and now I can float. And now I can get from here to there via water. Chimpanzees can't do that. We're the only animals that can do that. We can think in metaphor. But that sets us apart. The fact that we run on stories, our whole lives are all about beliefs, stories, imagination. That's everything that humans revolve around, is our imagination. And we are able to think in metaphor. So those are some very important pieces to understand. Now, like I said, everything you do, don't do, or react to is to feel something. And we will get into emotions in the Mastering Emotions module. But I just want to underscore the fact that that is not something I say lightly. Emotions literally are the key to the universe. You do not do something that scares you for fear of failure, for fear of being humiliated, for fear of being disappointed. That is just a feeling state. People who are afraid of public speaking don't stand on that stage for fear of feeling humiliated by all of the humans in the audience that are looking at them. That isn't something that would kill you. We don't die because we stand on a stage and bomb. Humiliation is not honestly that big of a deal, but we make emotions like that, like humiliation, shame, or failure, so big in our minds that we avoid doing anything that could threaten to make us feel those emotions. So I just want to point that out. And, it's like if you think of why you even got into surgery. Why did you get into surgery? It's probably to feel purposeful, to help people, to feel that feeling, that emotional state you have when somebody's like, thank you, like you fixed my broken arm. We wanted that feeling state of like helping someone and then them saying like, oh my gosh, you helped me with your special skills. That is so incredible. And we're just like, oh, that feels so good. Like it makes us feel alive. It makes us feel purposeful. It makes us feel useful. It makes us feel like we have a reason to be here. It gives us a reason to get up in the morning, like the Japanese term ikigai. That is what humans need. We need a purpose. We need a reason to get up every morning. And that's a feeling state that lives in our limbic system. And so as a surgeon, you are this social primate and you are in this very specific environment, surgery culture, surgery training culture that sends lots of messages. There's probably many more. This isn't a complete list, but here are some important messages to understand that are coming your way. One is to be more male. And I don't say that to vilify the culture or to be sexist or gender or be gender specific. It just literally is the way it is. There are many, many messages that tell us to be more male, whether it comes from just the infrastructure, the way that the operating rooms are set up, or it comes from the patients, or it comes from staff. For example, when I was in medical school, as a third-year student, I was rotating through this small hospital in Waukesha, Wisconsin on the general surgery service, and I had to go through the female locker room, get into scrubs, and then the female locker room directly led to the nurses' lounge, and then I'd have to go through the nurses' lounge and then walk around to the doctor's lounge because the male locker room led to the doctor's lounge. And so it was like baked into that hospital system was sexism. It was like, if you want to be a surgeon, have a penis, like grow a penis if you want to be a surgeon. That's kind of like the message that is being sent. Similarly, I can't tell you how many times people have told me, patients have told me, oh, are you the nurse? Who's the doctor? Or, are you going to operate on me? Who's going to do the surgery? I mean, even last year, and I've been in practice for 12 years. I just left my practice at the end of December. But even last year, somebody was like, are you going to do the surgery? And I was like, yeah, I've been talking to you this whole time. Like I diagnosed you, I discussed all the risks and benefits, I discussed all the details, the post-op things, like who do you think is going to do the surgery? Yes, I am the surgeon. I have done thousands of these. I also have a client who was telling me that she's in orthopedics and she would go to find 6.5 glove and they would never be stocked because they only stocked the size 7s, the 7.5s, the 8s. Another example of saying be more male, I remember there was a saying at Baylor where I trained, which was all the greats wear 8. How many women have size 8 hands? Not many. So that is just kind of the milieu that we exist in. And if you are a male, it may work in your favor and you may not even notice it. Or maybe you do notice it and you have some compassion for those of us who have to kind of deal with these messages that are kind of like bombarding us every single day. The other message that a lot of us are given is to be more white. I remember rotating through the VA at Baylor College of Medicine when I was a second year resident, and one of the patients saying that he didn't want to see one of my co-residents who was Black. And I was like, I didn't know what to do at the time. It was just so jarring, and I was so confused, and I didn't know how to manage that situation. But with the tools that I have, I probably would have gotten curious and tried to figure out why this patient would think that, and then to really talk my co-resident up, because he's a great doctor. Be from the US. I have clients who are international grads, and they tell me all kinds of stories about feeling discriminated against because they weren't born in the US, they didn't train in the US. So that's another kind of message that we give to humans, that the humans have to kind of deal with. We have to figure out how to sort out that message that comes our way. Always say yes. When we say no, we almost feel like we're letting everyone down. We have this thought error that we always have to say yes. That if we say no, we are not a team player, we are a failure, we are being rude, we are weak. If we say no, it means that we don't have enough capacity, and therefore we are less than. But when we always say yes, that is how we burn out. That is how we lead ourselves down a road where we don't have time for our family, where we are so exhausted, we come home and what's left of us is like a shell of ourselves to give to the people that actually matter to us. So clearly that's a problem. But if everyone around us is always saying yes and never going home, and they show up at 5 a.m. and they leave the hospital at 9 p.m. and they're just waiting around for traumas to come in, and they're always present and they're always available whenever somebody asks them to do something, they're like, yep, let's go. When we're trying to compete with that, then that's the kind of the message that's sent our way. The other message is don't have needs. And that kind of goes with always say yes. Don't listen to your animal body. You need to sleep, you need to rest, you need to eat, you need to play. Don't need those things. Similarly, don't have desires, don't have wants. We're supposed to kind of just completely ignore the needs, desires, and wants of us, of ourselves, and shove all of that aside to martyr ourselves for our patients, for this profession. That is the message that is given to us. Be everything to everyone, okay? Be compassionate, be empathetic, be patient. When patients come in with anxiety or they're challenging to you, figure it out. Have the wherewithal to deal with other humans' emotions, and be stone-faced and stoic and an authority figure and the captain of the ship in the OR, but also be really, really kind. Don't overstep your boundaries. If you need help, you can ask for it, but don't ask for too much help. You kind of have to be everything to everyone. You can't ever be vulnerable or authentic is kind of the message that is sent our way. And to be perfect. Don't ever make a mistake, because the stakes are really high. We are operating on humans. Just show up and just piss excellence and be perfect at every turn, while exhausting yourself because you're not listening to your body, you're not giving yourself what your body needs and what your mind needs. Be a team player. That kind of goes along with always say yes. If you say no, or if you say hey, I'm actually not going to take that call for you, I can't. Or if you say, ooh, don't add that patient on, I want to go for a walk during lunch. Or I promised myself I was going to get to the gym by 4 p.m. so that non-urgent add-on, I'm not going to allow it. We're always saying be a team player, just bend over backwards for everyone. Otherwise, you're letting people down is kind of the message. Know everything. We are expected to know everything in this culture. We're not just the medical and the surgical knowledge, but also coding and the system, the convoluted, completely backwards, extremely expensive US healthcare system. And that is this is a job in and of itself, just knowing the coding and knowing the system. But while we're exhausting ourselves with all of this other stuff and trying to deal with being a human at the same time, we're expected to know everything, not just medical and surgical. Don't talk money. Don't talk about compensation. Compensation doesn't matter. You shouldn't care. You should just expect to take whatever they give you and be happy with it. And On top of that, this profession also promises almost like financial freedom as the only freedom that we should really be looking for, because we're not given freedom of autonomy. We're not given freedom of movement. Once we're in a place and we're working and we establish and we set up our practice, we can't just like up and leave typically other parts of the country. Whereas if you worked as like for a coach, for example, which is my current profession now, I can move to Amsterdam and I can coach clients from there if I wanted to. That's freedom of movement, freedom of autonomy. We are always beholden to insurance rules, to bylaws. We don't have the autonomy that an entrepreneur might have. And then don't show emotion, be an emotionless robot. Show up if you have a complication, don't talk about it, don't cry, don't be anxious, don't have self-doubt. Definitely don't be vulnerable. Don't show emotion. Just be this emotionless robot who can do everything, be everything to everyone, who's perfect, who is a team player, who has no human needs, and who is as male and white and from the US as you can possibly be. And that's kind of like the perfect surgeon avatar, right? In the eyes of culture.